In 1946, the New York Knickerbockers became one of the founding teams of the Basketball Association of America, with Knickerbocker being a term used by author Washington Irving to refer to Dutch New York settlers and eventually all New Yorkers. They won NBA titles in 1970 and 73, and lost in the finals twice in the 90s and haven't been back since. So what's it like rooting for a foundational NBA franchise that was the literal worst team in the league for the first 2 decades of the millennium? Let's find out. I'm Dan Hopper. This is Thrill of Defeat. My first guest today is the co-host of the Six Trophies podcast and the X-Ray Vision podcast. It's Jason Concepcion. Thank you so much for being here, Jason.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Do you want to tell us about those podcasts a little bit?
Well, Six Trophies is gone away. It's done now.
Oh,
we'll have some other NBA related thing to announce at a certain point.
That's exciting.
X-Ray Vision, we're still going.
Dropping on my podcast.
That's
wow.
Right. X-Ray Vision, we're still going strong. We're following Foundation as well as the new Alien Earth television series on FX. Follow us for all your nerd culture needs, and there's a bunch of other stuff that we don't need to get into. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Nice that you have a life outside of the Knicks too, so
yes.
You can kind of
yes,
your happiness does not fully depend on the outcome of their season. So you can just watch TV and talk about that too, and be completely normal and happy.
Yes,
just like all of us. Yeah. My other guest is the senior NBA writer for Yahoo Sports, and he is the co-host of the podcast The Big Number with Tom Haberstroh. It's Dan Devine. Dan, thanks so much for being here.
Oh man, my pleasure. And it's my favorite thing to do is to talk about the Knicks with Jason Concepcion. We've done it a couple of times on a couple of different platforms before.
Let's go.
And to be able to do it under the guise of a show called The Thrill of Defeat feels like the right emotional timbre for that kind of conversation. Mm-hmm. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I wanted to do a Knicks episode for a while, and I truly could not have thought of a better pair of guests to be on this. I followed both of your guys' writing for a long time and your social medias, and I'm glad you're here to talk about Knicks fan misery. I have to say too, just we were talking a little up top, I have a pretty good grasp on like a lot of the tortured fan bases in sports, but I feel like researching this podcast, I feel like the Knicks are a little sadder than I expected, honestly, because in my head, I remember their high highs, and I was just kind of like, oh wait, they've been kind of bad for about 25 years. So let's just start at the beginning. Where did you guys grow up, and how did you first become Knicks fans?
Wow. Should I go first?
Go for it.
Why not? I grew up on Long Island, and how did I become a fan of the Knicks? I had an English teacher who I didn't like, who was a big Celtics fan, and talking about the Celtics, and all the championships, and the Knicks hadn't won since, and now, of course, it's a much longer time since they actually had one. It's weird to think now to like the mid '90s, and like it actually. Now it wasn't that long from that point. It's 2025, like 2003 feels like not that long ago. And that's kind of like what it was,
From the 90s to the Knicks championships, you mean?
Yeah. So I was like, fuck this guy. I'm going to start paying attention. and it just so happened that was like the beginning of a fruitful period of Knicks basketball. Pat Riley was there. The rivalry with the Bulls was kicking off. The rivalry with Indiana would spark soon. And it was like a perfect period to be a Knicks fan.
Mm-hmm. Dan, how about you? Where'd you grow up?
Similar. I grew up in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, moved to Staten Island when I was 9 years old. So like whenever they do the electoral maps of New York or around an election, the red dots, that's where I was.
That was you personally. You were just emphatically converting everyone. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I was trying to think about like, do I have a like foundational text memory of like, this is when you were a Knicks fan? And I think the answer is no, because I was the youngest in a larger family of sports fans. And it was just like the air you breathed, right? Like you kind of come out of the womb with teams. Like you're going to get the Giants, you're going to get the Mets, you're going to get the Rangers, and you're going to get the Knicks. And so like from the I have like vague memories of the late 80s, like early 90s. They played like the Celtics in a playoff series or two. Like, okay, this like there was a Rick Pitino interregnum period there, but like the like flash or the bigger, like more clear-minded memories are they are like already fighting the Bulls every spring. And like I'm, like 8, 9, 10 years old. I'm 11 years old in the 94 finals. That's like kind of my understanding of what the basketball team you're supposed to root for looks like is just like playing a side-scrolling brawler. Like you're just supposed to be breaking open garbage cans and getting full roast turkeys, and that's how you gain your health. That was like the way the Knicks played. And so I feel like I grew up with a malformed understanding of what fun and exciting basketball could look like. Like I was like, that's no fair. Those guys are hitting shots. Like why would you root for a team that could do that instead of putting somebody in the Cobra clutch? Like that was the way I understood those things to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the Knicks, they won titles in 70 and 73, I assume before both of your times, before my time as well.
Only Spike Lee has seen that.
That's the only
few. I don't think anybody else. We have lost almost all connections.
Empty arena, just like baby Spike Lee in like the upper bowl.
That's right.
Like, why did you move down, dude? He's like, no, I just
I feel comfortable up here.
There's no footage of it. Yeah, it's like a vague memory. But yeah, I mean, we did a Supersonics episode, and I didn't even know they had won in the 70s because it just never comes up. What were your thoughts when late 80s, early 90s, they draft Patrick Ewing first overall, I think in 85, and kind of become decent, but then really good in the early 90s. But like you said, that's exactly when the Bulls are completely dominating the entire NBA. So what was it like to root for a team that was on paper good, but you kind of, in the back of your mind, maybe knew they didn't have a shot, or did they? Well, did you think they did?
I guess you have to understand that, like, at that age, for me, I don't know anything. Like, all I know is I love this team. Mm-hmm. I really want them to win so badly. And all I know is the like points per game, rebounds, and assists stats in the newspaper, and nothing else. Yeah. Like, the people that I think are good, I think they're good because they're on like the NBA, like marketing VHSs, like great guards of the NBA
yes.
and fantastic centers of the NBA and incredible plays of the NBA. Mm-hmm. And I think they're good because I go to like whatever the Lids store, whatever the version of the Lids store that we had then was, and like their jersey is there, like Dominique Wilkins' jersey is there. Mm-hmm. So I thought Patrick Ewing was the second best player in the league as far as I knew, right?
Yes.
Jordan's the best. All right. Okay. Which turned out to be correct. But like, I knew that because he had several, he'd come fly with me in many commercials and posters. And then there was Patrick Ewing, who, as far as I was concerned, again, was the second best player in the NBA. It took a while because, again, like I don't know anything. I have no background in anything. I have no history with this team. So I thought, they're very good. They're one of the great teams. Yes, it's been a while since they won the championship, but like we're really good and we're knocking on the door. So that's my perception of it. And my perception of the Bulls was these fucking guys, they're getting every call and we're getting jobbed every single second we're on the court. We're getting screwed because they're letting Michael Jordan do whatever he wants. And Patrick Ewing has 4 fouls in the second quarter, and this is bullshit. That was basically my interior monologue for the 90s.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, I would say this probably goes more to my own, what I've got going on inside that I'm continuing to work on a daily basis. It really tracks with my understanding of like Catholicism and self-worth, where I'm like, well, the suffering's the point, like you're going through this experience and you're going to have to go up against the best player of all time and you're going to keep losing. But like eventually all of that suffering here is going to be rewarded with this like ascent to a higher plane of existence. When you finally reach the mountaintop, it will all this meaning, right? Like you will have reached this top because of all the lessons you had to learn along the way, the hero's journey, whatever, insert your, framing metaphor here. And then, as it turns out, it doesn't have to go that way. You can just kind of keep losing, and you can never get all the way to the top. But but I think that's right. I think the way I understood, again, I'm coming from a part of New York that's like cops and firemen, primarily a lot of like working class Irish and Italian families. And a lot like there was the kind of like the more like hard scrabble outer borough version of what a New Yorker is, right? Like there's the version of New York you see reflected in mass media, like I don't know, like Wall Street in the 80s. And then there's like the guy loading the truck on Law and Order who's like, yeah, I used to see that guy over there, and I lived there. And so like the idea of a Knicks team that was staffed, even the superstar was kind of like a shot blocking, like menacing dude, and then everybody around him was bullies. You're surrounding him with Charles Oakley and Anthony Mason and Xavier McDaniel and Anthony Bonner, to the point where like later on, as you were talking about the Bulls, I remember having conversations with friends. It's like, well, if you don't really need Anthony Bonner for that many minutes, like what if he just checked in and like chop blocked Jordan? Like what would happen really if he just kind of dove at his calf? And you're like, well, that's not how this works. Like that's not a fair way to play. But like the idea of, I think a city identifying with a defense kind of punch you in the mouth, literally and metaphorical team, like that aligned identity, like in terms of identification for me. Like I that made sense. I think like there's a certain, and not only New York, I think everywhere, but there's an idea of I'm rooting for the underdog. Like I can view this as exceptional, but this is an underdog, and I that's like writ large by you are going against the single best player maybe ever. Mm-hmm. So like it's an easy handle to latch onto as a kid, because you're also like, I'm a kid, I'm an underdog in every fight. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing constantly, and I don't I don't have any power.
Mm-hmm. No, that really resonates because, to Dan's point, I think every place thinks about themselves as like this underdog location, this underdog culture. New York, there's something kind of that doesn't line up about that, right? Greatest city in the world, but also we're underdogs. And it's like the Yankees, but also, this hard scrabble team. And so I think that, I thought about the Knicks as like this hard scrabble group of guys that were getting fucked by the refs all the time. John Starks like climbed up out of the grocery store to like start for the team,
literally,
and we're like playing the princes of the NBA who are on all the marketing things. And also like, I don't understand tactics, right? So us grabbing them and throwing them to the ground all the time, I thought that was legitimate because like watching this, the other thing is that's hard to connect with now is I had MSG Network, so I could watch every Knicks game. And I watched the national game, which was like, there was one national game a week. So you don't really see other teams. So all I know about the Knicks is to score for us was like trying to climb out of a pool with like cinder blocks chained to your limbs. It was like the hardest thing to do ever. Throw it into Patrick Ewing, 15 feet from the basket, and it's just like pound, pound, pound. Hopefully that ball goes in, right? And usually it would, but that was what offense was to me. So I didn't really understand the Bulls and how they could be scoring so easily. Something must be wrong. Like that's not correct. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we were dragging them down physically, grabbing them around the neck and like dragging them down to earth, that was like a writing of the scales. I didn't understand that was thuggish behavior at the time. That seemed like, well, we have to do that because it's so tilted in this weird cheating way. Mm-hmm. Why are they flying? We can't fly. Like, what's that about? Why are there two guys that can fly?
Yeah. We gotta spread this flying guys out. Each team gets one. I like the dichotomy of your two responses being like, yeah, we were this team, built to grab them and destroy them and punch them in the mouth, and everyone on the team was built that way. And also, we always had so many fouls because it was just bullshit. The refs would just job us for this.
Yeah.
It's like in real time, we're kind of putting two and two together. I'm like, wait a minute.
Right. Yeah. What freedom looks like to me is Charles Oakley clotheslining you, and what oppression looks like to me is a defensive 3 seconds on your team. Like, a Rick Smith's illegal screen. Like that's what I'm like, no, that we need to legislate out of the game.
Mm-hmm. So the Bulls knocked the Knicks out in 91 in the first round, 92 in the second round, 93 in the third round.
By the way, it's only us and the Pacers that took them to 7.
Okay.
So that's even in the finals. So by the transitive property of NBA games, technically the Knicks and the Pacers much later, but the Knicks in 92 are the runner-up in the finals.
And might have run the West.
Yeah.
If they hadn't run into the Bulls. Yeah.
That's canon.
So that makes sense. Yeah. That is just math. That's what Jason said. Yeah. That's math. That works. So, when that happened, did you each time anew think like this might be the year, or were you kind of resigned like, here's our chance to lose to the Bulls again? Like, or do you even remember?
I thought it would happen when Starks dunked on Horace Grant. Mm-hmm. I was like, when something that cool and visceral and loud and like watershed moment in your adolescence, when you're like, well, this is it. This is when it changes. And then as it turned out, it didn't change. Michael Jordan, then I think they ripped off 4 straight wins after that.
Four straight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the quote that lives in my head about this, because I wound up writing about that years later, and I'll probably write some version of this story about the Knicks. How they, as long as
therapy journal. Yeah, I got it.
That's right. Or as long as I'm doing this as a job, and then also just for the rest of my life. Pat Riley said like John called and Michael raised, and it was like, well, yeah, that's the way it worked. Also, maybe literally, I don't know. There could also have just been a card game going on. The loading dock.
He was talking about an unrelated Atlantic City trip they went on.
But like when that happened, and they go up and they win that game, and the juice and the electricity, I'm like, well, this is it. And so, that then became the corrective of like, well, if it didn't happen there, it's not going to happen against those guys, which again is your brain hedging a little bit where you're like, yeah, but if those guys aren't there, which, brings us into the future.
Yeah. That's interesting too. Just a general sports phenomenon, or all of those like could have been turning point moments that are now lost to history. That, if they had come back and won, everyone would have probably pointed to the thing you just said, that dunk. And it's like that changed. Yeah. And then we knew like the shoe was on our foot. We had the confidence. And there's so many of those where it's like, Elway dove at the goal line and even he was diving head first. We knew it was the Broncos' time. But it's like, then if they lose, it's just like this random play that gets forgotten, So there's probably infinite of those, like, would have been the thing you talk about in a documentary, but it's like, oh, they lost, so it just evaporates. Other than you bringing it up now.
I have the picture right there.
That's right.
Oh yeah,
John dunking on Ho Grant and Michael Jordan. For me as well, it was a transformative moment.
In the living room, so I'm recording in the bedroom. In the living room, we have like an underground art print that's like blacked out of the silhouettes of everybody in there. That's over the TV, and so my kids are like, "What was that?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me sit down and tell you a story." And then they're like, "This is boring. We don't want to do that. Let's just watch the dunk." Oh yeah, which is also fine. Just watch the dunk. It's there. And but as you're saying, then you're like, these plays, if they don't lead to the promised land, they can be relegated to like the dustbin of history. I think the fact that it's like. That has not happened and maybe will never happen for the Knicks because you don't get over the hump. There's not as much to celebrate. So you're like,
like I guess the hump becomes the thing.
You're like, that was a sick dunk though.
Let's get a poster of the hump.
That's right. As long as we don't start calling it the hump, the dunk is
fine. Yeah. I like Dan's entire living room. You can't see it right now. It's just like a wallpaper print of that, like over and over again, like 1,000 times. Just like,
very understanding life.
Really. Yeah. So 1994, a huge event for the Knicks. Michael Jordan, quote unquote, retires. And so he steps away from the league, and the Knicks, spoiler, make the 1994 NBA Finals. So do you remember when Jordan announced his retirement? Was part of you like this is finally our chance to get out of the East.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, they play the Rockets in a 7-game series. And take us back to, what you were thinking that season as the Knicks finally have a shot without the Bulls in their way. I mean, the Bulls still were good, and then getting to the finals.
Wow. I mean, I first, let me just say that I believed at that time in the earn your stripes evolution of a team. Like, I believe, like, it had been drilled into me from the various NBA marketing materials that I was imbibing on a regular basis, that it was like the Pistons had to break through the Celtics, the Bulls had to break through the Pistons, and so the Knicks had to break through. This was part of it, right? So I viewed 91, 92, 93 as like weirdly part of it. 92, when we took them to 7, I thought, okay, we're knocking on the door. Like, it's close. And I dared dream at that time. The Starks dunk year, when they lost in 6 after winning the first 2, after the Starks dunk, I was calling all my Bulls friends on my landline telephone and saying, we're going to fucking do it. And then when we lost, I cried. Then Jordan retires, and I'm like, this is it now. Like, and I had no shame. I was like, I don't want to actually beat, like, I don't think we can beat him. It had dawned on me that we couldn't beat him. So I was thrilled. I was like, good, get him out of here. Like, give everybody else a chance. This is fantastic. Like, I love it. And, I guess it turned out, listen, the Starks, whatever it is, 2 for 16 game was horrendous. It was like dying. It was like every shot, I'm like, stop shooting. And this is a game after, if Hakeem doesn't get a fingertip on John's, like at the buzzer shot, I feel like maybe we win, maybe we win the title.
Yep.
That said, this is how you learn about basketball. That was where I realized that, there's a reason the guy was bagging groceries for a period of time. It's not that he's not good and not an NBA player. It's that then you start to look at other teams. You go, other teams have guys that are like making multiple All-Star games whose like CV isn't Safeway, grocery store, New York Knicks. Like, they went to a college and performed. And I started to realize after 94, when we lost, that one, it was heartbreaking. There were moments where you could have imagined we might have won, but also the hard truth of it was our team is not that good. We have Patrick Ewing, who's fantastic, and we have this style does everything it can to maximize him. But also the rest of our guys are just kind of cast off, not all-star level players. And so that was when I really started to pay attention to who's on these teams, where do they come from? And maybe the Knicks aren't the collection of all-star talent that I thought that they were, because Starks made one all-star team for some reason. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jason, sorry, just for listeners, what Jason was referring to, the Knicks went up 3-2 in that series. They narrowly lose game 6, and then game 7, they lose to the Rockets, and John Starks went 2 for 18, famously.
2 for 18.
Yeah. I do. It is kind of funny how the story turns on its head. We're like, this guy came out of a grocery store and he's leading us to the finals. And then that happens. You're like, go back to the grocery store, you loser. Sports is such a brutal line.
We need to stop for a minute and talk about John Starks. So here's the thing about John Starks. I'm contractually obligated at this point to say that, yes, as Jason mentioned, he had 27 points and 8 assists in game 6. If the rest of the entire team does not shoot like 33% in game 6, they win in 6, and we don't have to worry about game 7. I'm also contractually obligated to say that John Starks is one of the better encapsulations of that thing we were talking about like, you pour your heart into the underdog version of this thing. Like,
totally.
Because John Starks, like, yeah, he was the guy that had to, like, I think it was like 3 junior colleges, like a stint at Oklahoma State, barely got a cup of coffee with Nelly and Golden State, played in like the Continental Basketball Association. It was like all like in like the minor leagues before there was like a G League, a D League, whatever. He had to like get it out the mud literally in that situation. And he like, you could tell he knew it, like he appreciated it. There is this indelible image in my head from one of those commercials, one of the like I love this game commercials of Starks like bending down at center court and kissing the Knicks logo at half court, and like this, which is like a pandering kind of thing, maybe, but like you always felt like he appreciated so much that this was the place that gave him the chance and that he got on, and he was like gonna if getting to the next level was required like a pint of blood on the floor, he was gonna leave it there. And so like I will never be the guy that was yelling go back to bagging groceries, even though that was like one of the most heartbreaking experiences of my life. Like, why is he shooting more threes? He is 0 for 10 from 3. Stop shooting. But that's like tragedy. That's like, you know, like that, like a specific kind of literature. Like John Starks getting to that point, having one of the games of his life to get this close to winning and then losing, and then it all going away in one fell swoop was like heartbreaking. There was something kind of emotionally wrenching about when John Starks eventually gets traded from the Knicks. It's like he goes out and Latrell Sprewell comes in, and you're like, that feels a weirdly similar place in my heart. I don't know how to quite react to it, but like Starks didn't choke his coach, but you got to say if it meant a lot to him, he would have, you know, like he cared enough to do the job, you know, is I guess what it came down to. And so like that end point though, to go back to a point that Jason made, like I grew up thinking that Ewing was the second best player in the world, because that's the way it made sense, right? Like the Knicks are the second best team in the East, but they lose to Jordan. Ipso facto, they're the second best team. He's the second best guy. And then I was like, who's Hakeem Olajuwon? What is this guy doing? And then for the purposes of this podcast, because I'm nothing if not a professional, I went back and watched like a little 10-minute mini movie of Game 7 today. Also, because I don't have a great regard for my own emotions. They were so this is 1994. They're running Hakeem off of like staggered pin downs.
It's a 4-out system. Like it's pretty crazy. It's a very modern system.
Yeah. And like it's Robert Ory as like a stretch 4. It's very, you know, multiple guards who can shoot, you know, not just the one. And like, but they're finding ways. Like in my memory, it's all Hakeem, like Ewing, hand up back to the basket and I'm operating the post. Like, no, he's catching the ball all over the place. He's dribbling and creating. And you're like, yeah, that guy was just better. Like, and so realizing that in that moment, not only is Ewing not the second best guy, he might not even be the third. Like, wait, how far down the talent pecking order are we? You know, like you were saying, Jason, I didn't think this at the time because I wasn't aware of it that much at the time. But then a little bit later, you're like, this guy's like over 30. His knee braces are the size of most of the people I know. And maybe if it didn't happen then, maybe it'll never happen. And so like that feeling of like, it's a missed opportunity. And also like, maybe was that it?
Yeah. Hakeem Olajuwon, as fans don't know, drafted first overall the year Michael Jordan went third. And I feel like Sam Bowie went second, and it's kind of one of the famous like whiff draft picks of all time. But I feel like no one really gives Houston any shit for not taking Michael Jordan because Hakeem was so good. He was so good in college and had such a good NBA career. The other thing you just mentioned in that about John Starks too, that kind of makes me think of, I don't know if you've seen the 30 for 30 about Steve Bartman.
I don't know.
Yeah. But, you know, the Steve Bartman incident where he interfered with the ball and, you know, the Cubs end up losing that game and they lose the series to the Marlins, who go on to win the World Series. But it's kind of a documentary, not just about Steve Bartman interfering with the ball, but about how we always reduce every series in our memory down to one thing. Like one distinct thing that went wrong becomes kind of the avatar for the series. And like you said, it's like, you know, John Starks, I remember as a non-fan, I remember hearing about John Starks in Game 7. I don't remember hearing about the rest of the team shooting in Game 6.
Yeah.
And then it also kind of negates everything Starks had done to get to that point. You know, it just becomes this like, okay, we need a tidy thing to get mad at about this series. Here it is. We're blaming John Starks for Game 7. And it's like infinite number of things that could have gone wrong in any of the games. And in the Bartman one, it's like Alex Gonzalez, who was the Cubs shortstop, makes an error on an easy double play ball, like right around that. And it's like, I didn't even remember that. No one ever talks about that. And there's infinite of those, but it's like whatever's most distinct and most like visceral becomes the thing. And the thing from Game 7 was the John Starks thing.
I will say
fair.
Just as a tag for that, like I guess maybe it's just indicative of the relationship that Starks did have with the fan base. Like that could have tanked the way he is viewed by that fan base forever, right? Like it absolutely could have. And it has not. He is like has remained a beloved figure throughout the throughout the intervening years, and now as the Knicks now are a perpetually competitive playoff team, like he's the kind of guy like the alum at every home playoff game. They're showing him on the jumbotron every game. They're showing highlights from his career, and he's there to support the team. Like he's become like a beloved kind of uncle around the organization in that way. He will never not be wearing that around his neck, but like it hasn't weighed him down in the view as everybody else, which is kind of nice.
The other distinct thing about the 94 finals, I don't know if you guys remember this at the time. I don't remember it at the time, but the OJ White Bronco chase broke out during Game 5, and NBC went to split screen coverage. It showed they put the Knicks Rockets game in the corner and showed the OJ Bronco chase, and then cut to the audio of covering the Bronco chase, not the audio of the game. And then also even the players on both sides started becoming aware of the Bronco chase during the game and listening to it and trying to get updates as the game was going on. Do you remember watching that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, I think in my memory, I'm sort of like, I just kind of want to hear Marv Albert. Like, why can't I do that? But like, so, and it was, with all due respect to my loving family, maybe good that we weren't having like big conversations about the OJ situation at that moment. Like maybe I wasn't prepared to hear what my dad had to say about that in that particular moment in time. But yeah, I mean, the thing that I regret most though is like, so now when I do writing, sometimes I'll go and like clip out video, like, oh, here's an example of this play, right? If I ever had a reason to go back and clip out stuff from the 94 finals, like the OJ, it might be tough to put that in an article, here's our split screen audio with the OJ, with the Al Cowlings Bronco chase. Might not fit so well into an article now, but yeah, wild times.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember it quite clearly. I remember being more than anything very, very annoyed. Though I was also fascinated with the OJ story, which I didn't quite get what the charges were at that particular time, but I understood that it was a big story, and it was also, you got to understand TVs at the time. It was like really hard to follow the basketball action with the split screen. Like I couldn't quite see what was going on. So it was more annoyance than anything else.
Yeah, you're watching a 28-inch SD TV that gets shrunk into like the bottom left corner. You're just like, I can't see either thing. Like what?
What did Carl Herrera just do? Yeah, it was tough to tell.
So between 1994 and 1999, the Knicks lose in the second round of the playoffs 4 years in a row. Obviously, Michael Jordan returns to basketball for a second stint and 3 more titles. And then in 1999, the Knicks returned to the finals against the San Antonio Spurs. What do you remember about the 1999 season? And what did you think as they headed into the finals against the Spurs? Were you confident? Did you think, okay, Jordan's gone again, this is their year, or what?
Well, but by 99, I kind of knew stuff. And I knew that, right. And I knew that Patrick Ewing was very old, for one.
Yeah.
I knew that, like Dan, that I'd, seen him in most post games appearing, like an Iceman, swaddled in thick layers of bags of ice, and that he had numerous injuries by now. But I also knew that they had cobbled together, like, finally in the later stages of Ewing's career, like help for him. And there was like a fun team around him. I was not able to follow them. I was not living in New York at the time, so I was not able to follow them as closely as I previously would have been. But I was following them through the newspapers and through the nascent internet and through national games. And they had gone on this kind of late run to get them into the playoffs. And so, it was the 50 game season. So everything was kind of strange. And, I was all in for the playoffs. Did I think they could win? No, because again, by that time I knew stuff by then. I knew that Duncan was incredible. Mm-hmm. And I felt like we didn't have the best guy in the series. Mm-hmm. And I had seen that throughout the entire 90s, basically, certainly going against the Bulls, not necessarily against the Pacers. But I thought, listen, we're a scrappy veteran team, and this is all gravy for me. I feel a lot about is a similar feeling to the way I felt about the Mavs team that finally broke through. It was kind of like, oh, I didn't expect them to get back here. Let's just kind of see what happens.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic. Honestly, it was like some of the most incredible games and endings to games and just wonderful feelings that have carried me through my Knicks fandom to this day. You know, like it was just unbelievable.
I like the idea of Patrick Ewing just with larger and larger bags of ice every
right.
post-game interview until he's finally like he's in like the Fortress of Solitude, like it was Superman's, and he's like, this might not be great for his health.
You know, the LJ 4-point play, I remember vividly being in a girlfriend's one-room place and being like, we have to watch this, and explaining like, we got to watch this game, and watching it on a TV that is like, maybe like it was like a Sony something that was like, I don't know, 10 inches, like 12, like the screen was so small and I'm sitting like an inch from it. And when LJ hit the 4-point play, it was an explosion. Like I remember running the perimeter of this tiny place, like down one side, 2 steps down one wall, up on the bed, down the other side of the bed, up onto the small like divan or couch or whatever, and just like doing laps around it.
Parkouring around the room.
Yeah, it was insane. It was an incredible feeling.
What was the LJ 4-point play for our listeners? Can you explain?
It's 1-1 series, right? Against the fucking Indiana Pacers once again. And Reggie had just put them up by 3, I believe, right? Let me look at it. Hold on. Yeah, so they're up by 3. It's 91-88 Indiana, like 9 seconds left. Indiana is about to go up 2-1 in the Garden and probably going to beat us. So they're going to edge us out. And LJ gets the ball, bobbles it on like kind of like the left wing outside of the 3-point line, and takes one dribble, goes up, phantom foul a little bit, probably. There's a lot of contact off the ball, but honestly, like on the ball, not a ton in retrospect. But this is just to kind of like pause here and editorialize. This is shit that happens. It happens. You get sometimes calls go against you. You see that a lot. Sometimes they go for you. And when they go for you, embrace it. So I embrace it, but they called the foul and the continuation. 3 goes in. It goes from 91-88 to 92-91 Knicks. And the Knicks win the game and end up winning the series, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic.
The emotional swing on that too, because the game, so that's game 3, right? Game 3 of a tie series. In game 2 was when Patrick Ewing tore his Achilles, like he hurt or injured his Achilles the game before, and then he doesn't play in game 3, and you're like, well, you know, we're done. Yeah. Like what can reasonably be expected? And that team was already kind of like a drive it like you stole it. Like they were the 8th seed in that 50-game season. They play the Heat, the hated Miami Heat, Pat Riley, Alonzo Mourning. This is the year after the Jeff Van Gundy, Alonzo Mourning clinging to the leg, LJ Mourning fight in 1998 playoffs. And the Knicks win that in 5 on the Allen Houston runner and eliminate the Heat. And so there's already the 8 seed eliminating the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Further than you'd ever imagined. Then they go and they win the second round series. And it's like, what are we doing here? Then it's the Pacers, and you're like, they should not win the series. Ewing goes down. All right, here it is. And the thing I will remember, one of those, I guess it was NBC, it must have been from the top of the Garden, like the rafters kind of shots when the LJ shot goes in. It's like the entire arena shakes, like everybody explodes to their, and you see the camera kind of like shudder. And that's like a pretty good shorthand in my mind for like what it's like to be in that place, or what it can be like in that place when it goes bananas like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to the extent that, you asked earlier, like how confident were you? At no point in that, did I think the Knicks were really about to win the championship? But sometimes those sorts of things happen, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it's that like Like every other fan base gets a team of destiny team once. Maybe this is ours. And then Tim Duncan said, actually, that's not. No,
without Ewing. With Ewing, you know, I could see there being like this kind of like outside puncher's chance. This is in my mind at the time. I'm like, maybe if we had Pat, just at least to like be a body on Tim, you know. But I didn't think at no time did I believe we really could win the title. But I was very happy to see us smite our enemies.
Yeah.
And Jason watching on the 10-inch TV, and then another chase breaks out, and they put it in the bottom left. Like, what the hell, man? Just some like minor car chase. You're like, you don't need to. Yeah. So we didn't even really get to not to backtrack, but we didn't really talk about the Knicks Pacers rivalry and the whole, you know, ongoing Spike Lee heckling Reggie Miller. That was a thing as a casual NBA fan without a team. That's one thing I remember very, very vividly from the 90s.
You have to understand, like, again, as a Knicks fan that didn't know anything, that was like coming of age during this time. To me, it was like, okay, the Bulls are our challenge. You know, we're dismissing all these other teams. Yeah. The Charlotte Hornets dismissed, you know, like, get out of here. The skeleton of the Detroit Pistons, swipe them away. And so when the Pacers came into the picture and were consistently giving us trouble, like every year, we were beating them, but it was always like, you're sweating big time. I remember being like, where the fuck did these guys come from? What the fuck is this? Hold on. It's like the Pacers? I was not aware that they had a team. Like I was, again, like I'm learning as I go. It was very annoying.
And again, to the point that Jason made earlier, where it's like the Knicks team was defined so much by how difficult it was for the Knicks to score and how difficult then it made it for other teams to score, that Reggie Miller could just get loose and shoot and consistently make a high percentage of those shots from far away felt almost like there's got to be a rule against this, right? Like that simply can't be allowed, that you could like run off a screen and catch and shoot. And like, also he can't be that good. Look at the way his wrists go across when he shoots. Like there was like something bullshit about it. And, and then he was loud, and then he was, you know, talking shit, and then he was backing it up. And it's to the point where like, I don't think I'll ever be able to actually give Reggie Miller his due. Like, historically great player. And I will still always be like, yeah, but kind of fuck that guy. Like, kind of fuck that guy, right? Like forever. That is like a vestige of fandom I don't think I'll ever be able to fully move on from.
I remember blaming Spike Lee for the whole trash talking.
Just shut up. Just
shut up. Shut the fuck up. And then Reggie Miller, like the choke thing. And I remember just being like, fucking Spike, why? Don't talk to him. Don't look at him. Don't do this.
Encourage
now
him.
It's
now it's
worse. Now it's like this iconic moment. But and also to Dan's point, it was kind of through the lens of the Pacers that I began to realize that any kind of inability to break through that Knicks might have was mainly due to the fact that we could not find another guy that could just average 20.
Yep.
You know, that was capable of being like, you know what? I know Ewing's going to get 23 with 18 rebounds and 4 blocks tonight. And I know that this guy will score whatever it is, 22 points.
Yeah.
Like they never had all of the right kind of pieces at the same time to be able to complement one another in those ways. And eventually, I mean, again, the Jeff Van Gundy era, it's like that's the last consistently competitive iteration of the Knicks for a handful of years of they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a really good defense. They're going to be able to win around maybe 2. They'll be competitive. Then once you hit the turn of the century, once you hit like 2000, 2001, and Jeff Van Gundy goes away, and so does the competitive iteration of the New York Knicks.
Well, it's a great segue to our next
professional broadcast. All right, let's go.
Yeah, so when I was preparing the outline for this, you know, I was like 94 finals, 99 finals, and then I was just like
tumbleweeds.
2000s to this year bad? Like I was like, what is even distinct? So in the 2000s, after that finals appearance, the Knicks missed the playoffs 8 of the next 11 seasons, and the 3 times they make it, they lost in the first round. What the hell was wrong with the Knicks all of a sudden, where they go from, you know, either a contender or a perennial, like decent playoff team to not even a playoff team for 10 straight years, and really for about 20 years of complete non-competitiveness.
They were the worst team in the league over the first 2 decades of the 2000s.
How does that happen to an NBA team where it's like a high profile team that will spend money, and then if you're that bad, you don't back into a high draft pick and get out of it for a couple years?
I mean, it's mismanaged. The only way you are bad in sports, you could be good, you can be bad. There's a lot of luck that are spaced and everything. You can do everything right and then have a down season, and that happens. But like, if you are well managed over time, you'll put in more good seasons than bad seasons. Like, over time. Again, this is a very, very luck-filled sport. The draft is luck. A lot of this stuff is luck. But the Knicks were just tremendously mismanaged. They were going all in on guys that had like Jerome James, for instance, who had like a good stretch of like 6 playoff games the previous season, which was kind of a blip overall in his career, but he had been good for like 5 or 6 games. And then you go all in, you give him a ton of money. Eddie Curry, who had shown flashes, give him a lot of money, and then kind of assembled this group of like misfit players who had a lot of potential and had a lot of name recognition, but had not shown any kind of propensity for extended winning. And then you add to that, there's like clear organizational chaos behind the scenes and this kind of like snake pit corporate culture of like backstabbing and just bad stuff. Ooh. And the chaos kind of just trickled, like, what is that Russian saying? The fish stinks from the head. Like the stink from the head of the fish just kind of trickled down to the rest of the organization. And you just had bad break after bad break after bad break. There was an infamous New York Magazine story about anti-Semitism within the Knicks players and how they were like, trafficking in the worst anti-Semitic tropes while they're, talking about their own kind of religious proclivities. So that was a bad hit. You had, the Isaiah's sexual harassment case being a bad hit. Yep. You had and only Knicks fans will understand this, you had the "are you going to get in the truck" kind of mini controversy. Yep. There was a lot of things that were just kind of like hit.
What was that?
On top of, just look it up, on top of a poorly managed team with a kind of cavalcade of GMs that were both wrong-headed in their strategies and not given enough runway to figure out their way out of it. So it was just compounding errors, and what you end up with is 20 years of badness.
Yeah. So definitely do your Googles on Stephon Marbury truck party. See what's going on there. That's one thing you can do. It's one way to spend some time.
I'm just going to do that. I'm going to be silent for the next 35 minutes. You guys can just
yeah.
We'll just cook from here. The fish stinks from the head is good because I'm looking at Wikipedia, and this is a relevant portion. In 1999, James L. Dolan was given an increased role in managing Cablevision sports properties and was now the primary manager of these assets. The teams under his domain include, most notably, the National Basketball Association's New York Knicks. 2 years later, Jeff Van Gundy is out, and we now start a revolving door of coaches that I believe it was 7 coaches in 8 years from that point.
Which is insane.
Then you also have Scott Layden is the lead executive of the Knicks, sort of bridging that gap. He goes out, and Isaiah Thomas becomes James Dolan hires Isaiah Thomas as the lead basketball executive, president of basketball operations, to make the decisions on who you're drafting, who you're trading, all those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. You asked about why you don't, like, if you're that bad for that long, how don't you luck into a top pick? The Knicks were often trading future picks away for win now veterans. There were also some just like bummers of you make the selection one pick before or one pick after Steph goes off the board, right? And that becomes Jordan Hill. Moving through this period, there was the Stephon Marbury trade, which I remember that was like 2003, I think. I was optimistic about that because the Knicks had not had a even like good point guard for a long time. And you're like, well, at least there's going to be a ball, there's the heartwarming component of New York kid comes back, but also like all-star caliber scorer creator.
For sure.
Have not really had that. Didn't work out super hot. The Knicks did make the playoffs with him, but I think they were still an under 500 team, and they got drummed out by the Nets, which felt pretty bad. And there was this constant idea of like, you couldn't just rebuild. You couldn't just be a normal bad team. The idea was New York wouldn't stand for like a multi-year considered patient rebuild where it's like, we're going to cycle bad contracts off the books. We're going to focus on drafting and developing. They won't stand for it. And now whether that is ownership saying, that's not what I want the quick fix. We should be competing every year and I'll spend whatever money it takes to do it. Whether it's the executive in his ear saying, I know I'm the only one with the right answer, whether it's agents from outside or somebody outside saying, the answer is you get my guy and my guy solves the problem for you. They went through like a decade and a half of that, if not more than that, of just like constantly chasing the quick answer, the sugar hit, the sugar rush. And you do that enough, you wind up in a pretty significant hole.
I'll give James Dolan some grace. We have seen there is no shortage of new owner who has come into the space and thought, you know what the NBA has been missing is me. They don't understand my ambition and my history of success. And I know how to do this. And what happens? You can't throw money at this problem. And, we can just, Matt Ishbia with Matt with one T at the Phoenix Suns is a classic example of this happening currently. And so James Dolan did not do anything that other new owners into the space have not also done. It's kind of a classic trap that the new guy falls into.
I forget, is it the 2011 collective bargaining agreement? I forget which year it was when they instituted the amnesty clause, giving every team that had its books larded up with one contract, like you get basically a get out of jail free card on one deal. If there's one contract you want to get off your books, you can. And it was colloquially referred to as the Allen Houston rule, and the New York Knicks used it to get rid of the contract of Chauncey Billups. So
it did not use it on Allen Houston, which is insane.
Correct. But it's very funny in the context of the management, and they're like, the league is saying it's for this guy, and they're like, actually, we got another idea. This other guy that we shouldn't have signed.
If any team, I'm not saying who, wants to get rid of a contract,
That's right.
That's funny. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like you're describing it's similar to some other high profile teams like the Rangers kind of did the same thing before the NHL salary cap, or the Toronto Maple Leafs, or to an extent the Cowboys. Those teams that are like, we're too big to rebuild, and then they end up being bad longer than a rebuild would have taken anyway.
Yes.
And so it's like, New York won't stand for a rebuild. It's like, well, you're bad for 20 years. So
another way
have been worse,
Another way that the Knicks have spurred my maturation process as like an adult is, I hated Pat Riley when he left. Hate. Like I wanted to see us beat the Heat, and not only beat them, but I wanted like somebody to go in there and hurt a Heat player. Like that's
I thought you were going to say
level.
hurt Pat Riley.
No, even that would be
just
great
like
too.
Roll on the sidelines and get
then,
a shin or something.
As this stretch of bad Knicks basketball through the 2000s was going on, and you watch the Heat rebuild once, twice, three times to the top level, you realize, oh yeah, we should have just given that guy what he wanted.
Yeah,
he wanted a piece. He wanted like crazy shit, like a piece of the team and all these other things. And guess what? He was right. We were wrong.
Yeah, because
look what they've done. They've rebuilt how many times out of the ashes while we continue to struggle forward. So you learn a lot being a sports fan.
The one distinct memory I have from this era, I lived in New York during this. The one positive was in 2012. There was the famous Lynn Sanity run. Jeremy Lin, who's a random guard from Harvard, just was dropping like 20, 30 points a game for a short period of time. And New York went apeshit. Have you ever seen an energy?
Jason wrote a book about it.
I did. I contributed to a book about it. But yes, vividly.
Yes.
I think we both vividly remember it.
Have you ever... I don't think I've ever seen energy like that for a random stretch of regular season games in any sport ever. Like, what do you remember about that period, and where were you watching the games?
Yeah, it was like late January, early February. It was like the sort of dead of winter in New York, and I remember it's starting to happen and being like, there's this insane thing that's happening, and it was Mike D'Antoni had been hired to be the latest genius that's going to come in from outside and fix the Knicks. And it was like, well, wait, there's a guard who can run pick and roll and pull up and shoot and can get downhill. Like he makes a ton of sense for what this guy does. But no one thought that Jeremy Lin was all that great, right? If they had, he wouldn't have bounced around the league like he had. And then it starts happening. I remember I watched the game against the Lakers where he goes up against Kobe.
Oh my gosh.
At like the dining room table in my parents' house in Westchester. I remember we go Valentine's Day. They played the Raptors. And you know what my wife got to do was we went to a bar called Woodwork in Brooklyn and watched Knicks Raptors for Valentine's Day. And Jeremy Lin hit a game-winning three-pointer.
That was the beginning of it. That was like the start of it.
And I was just like, well, this is the coolest thing. Like, she probably has a different memory of how cool that was. But like my memory was like, this was like,
she thought it was even cooler.
Yeah. She was like, this is so romantic. I love this guy. I'm really glad we're married. But yeah, like it felt like you were watching. I mean, this is maybe overstating, but like, this is the kind of thing that happens to other teams. This sort of thing doesn't get to happen to the Knicks. The Knicks don't get this sort of like purely good, uncomplicated, holy cow sport, the natural sports movie moment. Mm-hmm. And then it was happening and it kept happening and it didn't keep happening, but it kept happening. And you were like, this is unbelievable. And yeah, at that point, that's my first year of writing about the NBA full time. Like I'd just been hired by Yahoo, I think. So I wrote God knows how many Jeremy Lin blog posts and stories and whatever. And it was like absolutely thrilling, like a level of electricity that the franchise hadn't seen in a decade plus and has rarely seen since. I mean, like the out of nowhere nature of it made it kind of unprecedented in terms of the way everybody responded to it.
I remember I was just at like a random bar on like a Tuesday, and it was packed. It was absolutely packed. It was not a sports bar. It was just a regular bar, and they put the game on TV, and it was just packed with fans who were reacting to every shot, every possession, as though it was like Game 7 of the finals. And it's like, I've been to bars for New York playoff games that didn't react like that. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it was as an Asian American, it was like it was emotional, like on several levels. It was shocking and surprising. I think that obviously Jeremy was like better than the scouts thought he was, though worse than Knicks fans like myself dreamed he was as he was going through this run. But it was like, I've told the story before, but it was like, the thing to understand about the Knicks is they are the team that unites New York, with all apologies to the Brooklyn Nets. Like, you have the Yankees and the Mets, you have the Jets and the Giants, you have the Rangers and the Islanders. The Knicks are the team that everybody roots for, like the whole city. And there's a lot of, every fan base thinks that they're smart and really, but the Knicks really have like a deep bench of smart fans who understand the legacy of the team and its place in the history of the game and the history of the league and in the city. It's like, this is a core franchise for the evolution of basketball, professional basketball. And you can feel that stuff. You really can when they're good, with just like walking around the streets of Manhattan and hearing conversations and stopping. And you end up talking with a cab driver about the Knicks or the guy at the bodega or a cop. Like that shit really happens. And I remember I was working in the city. I was working delivering leather for a leather company. And the Knicks were playing the Heat. And this is like this is the game that is the end of Linsanity, essentially. Yeah. But it coming on the heels, you don't know that. And coming on the heels of the Laker game where he had 38 and he had that crazy spin around Derek Fisher, and like Kobe had, there was a lot of like Jeremy snuck up on people before that. And the Laker game was like Kobe had talked about him and they knew who he was. So like now you're beginning to think like maybe he is really this good. And so I'm like, I gotta see this game. So I'm not going to take the train. I'm going to take a car service, like go all the way back from Manhattan to Brooklyn. And I remember coming down the BQE onto Ocean Parkway, and like you could see like all the the apartments, and you could see in that the game was on the TVs, like as you go, like the intro, like to the game on MSG. And it was just like the energy was tremendous. And it was actually a good reminder that like, this is a vital, though we're going through a bad period, this is a vital franchise. There's a whole new generation of Knicks fans it was kind of a precursor to the side talk kind of phenomenon. There's a whole generation of fans that are like, yeah, we're bad, but fuck it. Like, it's the Knicks. Like, we're excited and we want to be excited. We can't wait to be excited about something.
Yeah.
And that, gave the whole thing a magical end. Now it would all end in that game because the fucking Miami Heat were on him like fucking Doberman, like on his ass, would not let him breathe. They probably followed him to the locker room and out to his car. Like, it was crazy. But
Pat Riley
I'll never forget that the preamble to that game and that ride, and feeling like the entire city was like concentrating on this.
But that's exactly right. And there's two names I want to bring up that we haven't mentioned in this conversation, just because it moved quickly. Like, that's the idea of you are just a fan base starved for a thing to grasp onto and be excited about. That was that stretch of like Amari Stoudemire 30-point games. Like Amari, like the Knicks clear off all their cap space for 2010, thinking we're going to get LeBron. LeBron can bring a friend, whatever. And then what happens is that, they all go, like they go to Miami. The Knicks strike out, but like Amari with his uninsurable knees takes the money, right? But he takes the challenge of we're going.
The Knicks are back.
The Knicks are back, right? And when Amari was right and was good, that like there was a stretch of him scoring. It's like, this guy is unbelievable, and the entire city like fell in love with him in that way. There was a great Lee Jenkins Sports Illustrated feature. That's how you knew something was going well, when Lee Jenkins wrote a Sports Illustrated feature on somebody. And then like when they make the Carmelo trade, everything around the Carmelo trade was a pain in the ass, and what they gave up for the Carmelo trade was not what we know what you would like to give up. But the idea of true blue superstar wants to be here, and the city coalescing around that. Like, there weren't very many. There was one playoff series against the Celtics where like, oh wow, Carmelo is like able to go head to head with this version of the Celtics. Now the Knicks as a team were not, and the Celtics moved on quickly. But like, when you saw one of those things, it was like, man, if they could ever figure it out, and Linsanity is a great example of it. The preparedness to freak out is at such a high level. If they can ever figure it out for an extended period of time, it would be beyond belief.
I have lived in New York. I moved for a little bit, but really since 2004, I've been here for most of the time. And this past year was probably the most excited I've seen New York about the Knicks, maybe since that couple weeks of Linsanity. Do you think you will see a Knicks title in your lifetime? Or are you so beaten down by getting close before and it unraveling, as we've talked about, that in this, last year them being good is part of you like, well, that's it. They're on the downswing. Or are you like, here comes a new era?
I would not be so arrogant as to predict a title in my lifetime. But I will say that in the era that we are in now, with, 7 new champions in 8 years or something, clearly this is the most wide open it's ever been. And I do think that the Knicks are the most competently run they've been in my lifetime, certainly since the 90s. And I would say even surpassing the 90s, because again, like, get a guy to shoot around Patrick Ewing, it was very obvious in retrospect, and even at the time, and they didn't do it. And this Knicks regime, headed by Leon Rose, they've done all the small things right, which is how you get the big things right. They've done their contracts right. They've done their extensions right. They've convinced Jalen, number one amongst all of them, and others to take a little less so that the Jenga of the contracts is better. Tom Thibodeau, for all his flaws, was the perfect guy to reinstill culture into the Knicks organization. And I have the highest of hopes for Mike Brown, all of which is to say, I'm hopeful that this team going forward with this regime in place can continue to be good. And that's, if they're in the mix consistently, that's enough for me, because I think if you're just like there in position to get lucky, to get some breaks, you can win one. I think it's possible that they could win one. Would I predict it? No. But I think with the landscape, with the way they're run, with the parity that we have today, they could win one. They could.
The challenge of right now, and just, it's sort of history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, right? Like we started this conversation talking about when you get to the year that Jordan retires, and it's like, oh, well, the path is cleared. You get to the end of this postseason, and it's like, who are the teams that Knicks fans were most freaked out about in the Eastern Conference? It was like, well, the Celtics, and yeah, granted, the Knicks were beating the Celtics before Jason Tatum tore his Achilles tendon, but the Celtics are clearly poised for a step back with Jason Tatum being out for the season. And then the Pacers, who, again, hilariously, the Pacers are, again, the team that stands in the way, and Tyrese Halliburton tears his Achilles tendon. And so you're like, this is as good and clear an opportunity as they've had since 1994, really, to get to this point. It didn't work out then. Doesn't mean that it's not going to work out now. But there is that. I think there is a sense of like, I personally, I won't put this on anybody else. See, when it looks like it's like there's no reason to be freaked out, is often when I am the most freaked out. And so, but Jason's points are all completely valid. And this is not just Knicks fans snorting lines of hopium. This is like around the league, the Knicks are viewed as one of the best run organizations in the league, one of the most competently staffed and forward thinking in terms of the way that they execute their transactions, all those sorts of things. There's plenty to be optimistic about. I think the thing that's interesting for me, and I kind of wonder where Jason's head's at on this. Mm-hmm. So because your version of covering the league is from, it is national. When you guys were on Six Trophies and the other shows that you've been part of, talk about everybody, but you've never really made any pretense about I am a Knicks fan and I view things through that lens. Because I have to write about everybody and then go cover the games and be there asking questions and stuff like that in some of these situations, I feel like I've got to take a little bit of a step back. Of course. I had to write a game column after the Halliburton shot, right? Yeah. And so I gotta chill out a little bit on some of these things. So to the point where when I envision say they win one and I'm going and covering a parade, would I process it the same way? Am I going to be able to access that same level of joy? I don't know.
Your headline was just, God damn it.
Listen, let's hope we get the opportunity to
find out. Yeah.
To find out. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I hope you get the opportunity to see if the beast within still stirs. I bet you it. I bet he does. I bet he does.
Just like one of those people winning the lottery, take this job and shove it. You're spraying champagne on yourself. You're like, wait, I still need the job. I'm not rich. I just.
Oh no, Dan's on Side Talk. That's bad. We gotta. Don't show the bosses. No.
You're just on the float, somehow. You're like, what? Oh no, Dan.
He had a shirt on when he left. Oh no.
Yeah. I mean, the side talk, I think look at the Side Talk phenomenon. That's what's inside of you, Dan, just waiting to come out.
Oh, God.
My last question, I just also want to point out, I feel like there is a measuredness to both of your optimism and your responses. I don't know if
we're Knicks fans.
It's so weathered into you probably from the years of misery, but you both kind of started speaking a little politician-y. You're like, they are in a position to perhaps optimize transactions in a positive way. It was like, wait, where did that cadence come from? And both of you did it. So, but so I guess my last question is, are you as big of a Knicks fan now as you were when you were little? Because you've both worked in this professionally. Like you said, you've had to have some perspective on it to some degree, and you've suffered so many setbacks and you're, older. I don't know if you have families or what, how's your fandom changed over the years?
Well, when I was a kid, I cried the Charles Smith game, the famous Charles Smith game, which gladly we did not talk about, when Smith went up 50 times trying to lay up the ball against the Bulls, and he was Smith blocked, swatted, blocked. And, I cried after that game. That wasn't even the fucking series clincher. I just knew we were not going to beat the Bulls. Right. I cried after Game 7 in Houston. I'm not that level of fan anymore. After the Tyrese Halliburton shot, I turned off the television immediately and went for a long walk and was furious. But that, when I think about that series, the better team won. And so strangely, I feel no serious animosity about either the Halliburton shot or what happened in that series. Because again, I feel like had we won, we would have gotten away with something there. So I feel like, but the beast still does stir in various ways. When Reggie Miller came out from behind his little booth there to join the celebration, I was sickened to my core. I was disgusted at the lack of professionalism, and I was left wondering, like, why LJ or Marcus Camby or John Starks couldn't have had the wherewithal to get into broadcasting so that we could have some of these scales balanced. The intensity is still there, but it's not. I'm able to stop it before it gets to the level of pain, true tears. But I will say this, if they ever would climb the mountaintop in my lifetime, I'm sure there would be tears. There would be tears, I think.
Mm-hmm. The way that Jason put it about, like, you are older, so you have a better capacity to kind of like put the stopper on it, or like at least, or be aware of what's happening to you. And then what are the things, what you have the tools in the toolbox to be like, what do I need to do to chill this out right now?
Yeah.
I'm a father of two. I have one daughter's about to be 11. One daughter's about to be 8. And so there's a certain level of like, I can't just be walking around the house muttering, cursing about all this stuff. There's also part of it, like, because of the professional obligation, a lot of times I'm like writing about this stuff as it's happening. So I kind of don't get to access the emotion about it. Really, I've got to kind of like deal with it, or just go right into, you need to go down to that press room and ask these questions. You need to get in the locker room.
That's good. Bury those emotions. Never think about them. Just let them sit down there forever. And that's how you should live. That's good.
Well, listen, I said at the beginning of this, I processed the Knicks through the lens of Brooklyn Irish Catholicism. So yeah, but I mean, all of this really is of a piece. It's very neatly done. Paul F. Tompkins had the joke where it's like, you bottle it up, you never admit a feeling, and then you die of cancer. That's what I'm cross your fingers. That's what I'm looking for. But yeah,
a title or cancer.
Yeah, right.
One or the other, please.
One or the other. As long as no feelings move, come out of the mouth, then we're good. But I think the other thing too about doing this professionally, and it's something I've admired about Jason, is that Jason's like ability to maintain like a level of fandom and interest and a wide variety of like walks of life. And it's not just the Knicks. It's not just, A Song of Ice and Fire. It's not just the things that he talks about on X-Ray Vision. It's across a wide array of things. I feel like between my job specifically about NBA writing and then my family life, like it's winnowed away a lot of like the other team fandoms. So like, I'm not up to date on the Mets like I used to be. I barely watch hockey because it's contemporaneous in the season with the NBA. I don't really follow the Giants anymore, follow the NFL a ton because it's weekends when I'm with my kids. So like the only team I do still have any kind of real emotional relationship to is the Knicks. Which maybe doesn't feel like the healthiest, play. If you got one bowl to put your or one basket to put the eggs in, this might not be the one. It might not be the
shittiest
most
basket. Yeah,
might not be great. Yeah, it's the one that's left over after Easter in the window in the department store. Like, there's a lot of holes in the thatching in the bottom.
Clearance basket. Yeah.
Yeah. But as long as it's not negatively inflecting the coverage, right? I think it's okay to still have it. I just got to be careful with got to make sure I keep the stopper on the emotional bottle.
Piece of shit Pacers get lucky again. This bullshit. Fuck this. This is all in the title of the article. Like
the weird headline. Yeah, I should have let the editor take care of that.
The picture's you being pissed off. Why don't you? We gave you images of the game.
He's flipping off his own phone. It's just weird. Yeah, it's a weird choice he made.
That's our show. Thanks again to Jason and Dan for joining to talk about the Knicks. I was very, very excited to have them both on. If you like the show, please leave an iTunes review or just tell some people about it. We'll be back in 2 weeks with an all-new episode. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.